responsible for water and biodiversity. Yeah, happy to be on the call. My expectation is learning, capacity building, realizing that this is difficult space, and we want to tread with caution and diligently to see how this can support us going forward. Yeah, and thanks for the invitation to be in this. We do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin, for honoring the invitation. Sarah Ross.
Hello, everybody. Good morning to some, good evening to others. Sarah Ross, I work at Harmony, as Joe mentioned, and I'm keen to learn all sorts. Like, I quite like the technical side of things. So counting and like ecology and things, I'm excited to learn how we do that. And also a bit more about the related metrics and targets that we have as well. So I come from like a climate background, greenhouse gas background. So cool, thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. I hope we are able to meet those expectations. Dr. Kavenda, and thank you, Dr. Kavenda, for extending the invitation to the rest of your team.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot for scheduling these. We really value it. It's Dr. Yushni Govender. I'm with Harmony, the Chief Sustainability Officer. And it's so wonderful to see all our science-based colleagues on the line, including our Harmony colleagues. Yeah, I mean, as Harmony, we've got science-based targets for climate. We want to certainly move towards science-based targets for nature. So that's what the team is here for, to understand how can we position all the good work that we're doing into some kind of a roadmap that can be quantifiably assessed. All the sustainability claims that we're having in the form of disclosure, that we can ensure that there's robust assurance against those. So we're very excited. And we're willing to support the conversations as much as we need to in terms of actual examples, data, etc., because we really want to make sure that we are ready for science-based targets for nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kavenda. That's really good to hear. Catherine Kuhn.
She's posted in the chat that her sound is not working, so she's introduced herself in the chat.
All right. Thanks. We can move to Tigesh then. Yes, you are still on mute.
Sorry. Hi, all. Tigesh Vatha, also from the Sustainable Development Team at Harmony Gold. What I expect to get out of the session is my focus on water, but I'd like to see how it interconnects with the other aspects of nature. And then looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Lovely. I skipped Garth and Sophie on purpose. I'll let them introduce themselves as they are presenting their respective presentations. I'll move to Marky Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Mariki Brown. I am from CHIP. I take care of sustainability and government affairs for our region across Africa, the Middle East, and Turkey. CHIP, under our flagship company Brambles, just launched our 2030 sustainability strategy. So we have a lot more focus on nature formalized within that strategy. We also have existing targets around climate, but this is a great way for us to see how we align across our different regions with regards to formalizing targets for nature as well. So really excited to see what we can learn and how we can bring that into the scope of our strategy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Marky. Johan van Wyk, John, not Johan. Sorry, John, about that.
No worries. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm John van Wyk. I'm a Senior Environmental Manager for Harmony. My expectations of today is to maybe understand the processes that is needed to set these SBTI targets for nature in terms of that, so that we can know how it fits, as the doctor and Tigesh and the rest of my team has explained, is how we're setting it forward, progressing and moving Harmony forward in terms of setting these targets. So yes, thank you.
Thanks. And lastly, Nishi.
Hi, everybody. My name's Nishi Hariprasad. I'm the group head for Harmony Gold, also supporting my colleagues on this one. I think in terms of the value from the session, also a learning curve for myself as well. I think it's more to understand how to set credible nature-related targets. There's biodiversity, there's water stewardship, and the other component of being able to articulate those targets to communities and the public, where they become credible, and we earn trust through articulating them. So thank you for that.
Nishi. We received an apology from one of our attendees, who will also be leading the next session on determining economic activities. That is Justin Bolton from First Rand. So she sent an apology, but she'll definitely be joining us in the next session. And yeah, over to you, Kat.
Perhaps we could just take this opportunity to ask Sophie if she'd like to introduce herself first, Malaka, and then I'll jump straight from my intro into a few opening remarks, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's okay.
So hi everyone, I'm Sophie. I'm based in France. I am the knowledge lead at SBTN, so I have two roles. My main role is to work with corporations to gather insights and feedback that they have while they implement our methods, and bring those insights back to the method developers with the goal to really improve the feasibility of our methods across different sectors. And my second role is to develop knowledge assets and materials to help those companies further understand the methods and enable them to implement those methods in their organizations. So I'm very happy to be presenting today an overview of step one. I'm really going to just present succinctly what is expected from you in step one. And I will also present a few slides on the business case for setting science-based targets. So what is the value that companies have seen while adopting SBTN targets while implementing SBTN methods and adopting science-based targets.
Thank you, Sophie, for the introduction and for that overview. Looking forward to your presentation. But first, Kat.
Yeah, Malaka, thanks, and a big thank you to Sophie for your contribution here today. It's much appreciated. And a really warm welcome to everyone here on the call today. Like you, I have such a keen interest in SBTN, very keen to learn a lot more about it. But how I'm looking at it is the interoperability with TNFD, and I'll get into that a little bit later in my opening remarks. But really just a big thank you again for the opportunity afforded to me to share a few thoughts on nature and the work that the MBI is doing in the sector. I'm hoping that I'm not going to be too redundant in terms of what I have to say today. I kind of feel like I'm in many ways speaking to converted, but I'd essentially like to talk to three overarching points, if I may. The first is, what's the threat? The second is, what's at stake? And the third is, what's the solution? So what's the threat? Nature underpins our collective survival and well-being by providing human development, equality, economic value, and security, and increasing our resilience to climate change. And essentially, as Business for Nature likes to say, there is no business without nature, and yet nature is in crisis. And what I'd like to now do is just refer a little bit to the planetary boundaries. So environmental degradation becomes increasingly clear. Concerns are growing that we are close to critical thresholds or tipping points in the Earth system. Such overshoots could lead to abrupt and potentially irreversible environmental changes, posing significant risks to ecosystems and human societies. An important tool for understanding these risks is the Planetary Boundaries Framework, first outlined formally in 2009, which identified 9 critical boundaries that define the safe operating space for humanity within the Earth system. But then in September 2023, a team of scientists quantified for the first time all 9 systems, finding that 6 out of the 9 systems have already been overreached or transgressed. And just to remind you that that these 9 planetary boundaries are climate change, biosphere integrity, land system change, freshwater change, and biogeochemical flows. I refer to Business for Nature. They're a global coalition of over 100 influential partner organizations advocating business and government for a nature positive economy. And they put forward that in essence, there's been a 73% average decline in global wildlife populations since 1970. And I know that the WWF Global Living Report has also articulated that kind of a stat. The whole economy depends on nature, with more than 50% of the world's GDP being highly or moderately dependent. 90% of pressure on biodiversity comes from the food, fashion, energy, and infrastructure sectors. And a little bit closer to home in South Africa, there was a fairly recent report that was done by collaboration between the French Development Agency and South African National Biodiversity Institute that began to understand this correlation between ecosystems and economic sectors. And they found that half of South Africa's output is produced by economic activities highly dependent on at least 2 different ecosystem services. And for example, 70% of the value of goods consumed by households are produced by activities highly dependent on at least 1 ecosystem service. So we begin to understand some of the inherent risks associated, financial risks and economic risks associated with ecosystem collapse. And so that brings me to my second point I wanted to make, was what's at stake. Well, again, according to the World Bank, economic collapse, a collapse in the ecosystem services could result in a $2.7 trillion decline, GDP decline by 2030, which is just massive. We're also staring down the barrel of systemic instability, the destabilization of Earth's interconnected systems, threatened access to food, clean air, water, and thereby impacting human and economic prosperity, as already mentioned. But also what we have at stake is exacerbated inequality. Because of potential failing ecosystems, this crisis would disproportionately affect vulnerable communities, worsening social inequality. So the third point then is, what's the solution? And so in a nutshell, I'd like to just make it really simplistic, although I know there's lots of complexity involved, and that is for businesses to take action now. And action could mean turning these risks into business value and resilience. And so it's by continuously increasing the understanding of business to take action now that we can transform these nature-related risks, whether they're physical, reputational, or regulatory, into opportunities. And a lot more can be said about this through the ACT-D framework that's assess, commit, transform, and disclose. But for the purposes of today's session, I'd just like to focus on a few ways that the MBI is supporting business to take action in the following ways. The first is today, and the journey that we have ahead of us as we engage in this capacity building with science-based targets for nature through the network. And these are essentially measurable, actionable, and time-bound objectives based on the best available science that allows actors to align with the Earth's limits and societal sustainability goals. And these science-based targets dovetail really nicely with the work that we're doing with the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures. Here we have formed a partnership with the Banking Association of South Africa to co-convene the Consultation Group for South Africa, where we have as our focus building awareness, building capacity, and spearheading influence for the TNFD. And influence here is really around influencing companies and businesses to embed nature in their decision-making processes by adopting the TNFD. And that work has gained tremendous momentum as we've been forging relationships and partnerships with various corporate entities as well as civil society entities. The third way the NBI is helping to drive action in nature is through corporate and government capacity building for enhanced nature positive ambition and improved water stewardship. This really is done through sessions such as thought leadership webinars, One of our units called Technical Assistance, Mentoring and Development work with local government and corporate sector partners to drive capacity in service delivery, particularly water. We're just about to start a partnership with the EW2, who's on the call now, represented by Catherine, working on what may essentially be a nature accelerator on behalf of Business for Nature, that will eventually tee corporates up to drive nature strategy composition within their organizations. The fourth way we're also working is through opportunities for practical project implementation through grey-green infrastructure interventions, serving both planet and people. And this really talks immensely to the step 4 in this process called ACT, which is based on the AR3T framework that was developed on the basis of the mitigation hierarchy. And this really is articulated through these key points: the avoid and reduce pressures on nature loss, regenerate and restore so that nature can recover, and then transform the underlying system in which companies are embedded to address the drivers of nature loss. And those points make up the AR3T framework that I mentioned earlier. And the first way that we trying to drive nature action across the sector is through the integration of nature into our climate work as a core strategy for climate resilience. And so we're working very closely with some of our key international partners to do exactly that, working both from an adaptation point of view as well as a resilience perspective. And so, folks, just wanted to give you just a word of encouragement to stay the course with us, so as to build our capacity to understand how to turn risk into opportunity while safeguarding our planetary boundaries. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for your attention, and I look forward to walking this journey with you. Thanks a ton, Malaka.
Thank you so much, Garth, for such an overview. I think it's clear we need to act for nature, and if we do not do so, there's a lot at stake. So as I'm going to hand over to Sophie now, who'll start telling us on how science-based targets for nature can start to help us make or start acting for nature in that regard. Thanks again, Garth. Sophie, do you want to drive the slides on your end, or should I drive them for you? But I think I prefer.
No, but the problem is that I don't see the slides. I only see on my screen, I only see setting the scene slide. I don't see the when you scroll, so I don't have my slides in front of me.
Okay.
Are you showing slides to the group?
We are showing slides. Garth didn't have slides. So the next slide will be starting from you, asking if you'd like to drive them on your end.
No, you can drive them, but I don't see them. Am I the only one? Oh, no, now I can see them.
Yeah.
No, wait, I just have a session 1 overview of step. Yeah. Do you have my slides?
Yes, I do. The slide starts here.
No, that's not my slide. I'm not presenting those ones.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Got it. Thank you.
May I please stop sharing and then you share from your end?
I'd rather you share so I can see my my notes. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. All right. All right. So as Casting and Garth explained, so SBTN, the goal of SBTN is to enable companies to take enough of the right actions in the right places at the right time to do their part to halt and reverse nature loss by 2030. And step 1 is a crucial step in order to do so, because these steps really help companies focus their target setting efforts on the issues that are the most important for nature. So just to make sure we align on the same terminology. So companies' economic activities can have an impact on nature, for instance, by transforming land or extracting resources or releasing emissions. And in sustainability science, the ways in which an economic activity can affect nature are often called environmental pressures. not all pressures are equally significant in terms of their impact on nature. And the methodology, the step 1 methodology, is really built to help companies focus on the pressures that are determined to be the most material from an environmental, but also from a societal perspective. So by following the step 1 technical guidance, you will achieve really 2 objectives. The first one is that you'll gain a broad understanding of which of your company's activities and the pressures that they generate are material enough to set targets. And then the second objective is to gather operational and environmental data that will be required in the subsequent steps of the methods to allow you to set science-based targets for nature. Next slide. Or slide before. Cool. So how does the step 1 look like, and how do we break it down? So there are 2 sub-steps. What's important here to understand is that the SBTN methods, throughout the steps, you will continue really narrow and refine your focus on what matters the most and what is the most priority from an environmental point of view, but also from a risk and strategic point of view. So step 1, you start very broad. You will have to do a quick and high level identification of all the economic activities that are material on 8 pressure categories, such as land use, freshwater use, soil pollution, freshwater pollution, greenhouse gas emissions. So you will already identify which activities are material. And then once you have identified your material activities, you will map. You will do a full value chain assessment on those material activities. So this is a very resource-intensive process, but you don't have to do it for your entire business. You have to do it only for the material activities. So what's important to understand, I'm not going to go deep diving on the data you need to gather. This will be in subsequent sessions, but the key takeaway is that after step 1, you'll have decided where to focus, either on your whole company or on single business units. I'll come back to that later. And you'll have identified which of your company's pressures are material to set targets. And you'll have compiled data to quantify those pressures, and as well to quantify the state of nature across your value chain. Next slide.
Sophie, can I just jump in here and ask, can we field questions while you're presenting, or would you like to take questions afterwards?
I'd rather do Q&A afterwards. I think that's
okay.
What we have, like 15 minutes Q&A afterwards.
Great, thank you.
Unless really no one follows, then obviously raise your hand. So what's important here to really understand is that you don't start from scratch. Companies don't start from scratch. The SBTN methods, they don't exist in a vacuum. They were developed really to be part of a broader system. So you can already leverage, there's a lot of data to gather, but you already have gathered lots of this data for your disclosure and regulatory compliance. So next slide, yeah. Let's take a look in more details on the different tasks of each step. So 5 steps here, 5 tasks for your materiality screening. And the first task, if you already have set science-based targets for with SBTI, so for your emissions, you would have already completed that organizational boundary definition. So what we mean here by defining organizational boundary is that you will provide a list of all the economic activities that fall within your operations and so within your responsibility. So that will be really the scope of your materiality screening. Then in the second task, you will classify those value chain activities using standard economic classification system. We use the ISIC system. And then once you have those ISIC codes, you also identify the high impact commodities. So all the commodities that you source or that you produce. And then you will use we have a tool called the materiality screening tool that you input all this information and the results will show you what are the material activities of your business. And then this tool is basically developed using global averages for different sectors. So you will have to do a refining of those, an interpretation of those results to make sure that they really match the reality of your business. Next slide. So once you've identified your material activities, you will have to do a full a value map, so a value chain map, value chain assessment. And the first task is, because the value chain assessment is so resource intensive, you can choose to focus on only certain parts of your business. You can choose to select one business unit instead of your entire organization. So some companies, for instance, retailers, have chosen to start with just a product line or a geographic location. You don't have to do for your entire business. The methods really allow you, and I'll come back to this also in a minute, really allow you to focus on where your organization is most ready to start. Then you'll create a map of your value chain activities, which include a description of your activities, their location, and for your upstream segment, you'll provide the volumes of all the procured goods and the locations where those goods are produced and transformed. Once that is done, and that's really very resource intensive, then you will quantify the environmental pressures of these activities. And what we mean here is that you'll estimate how much land or water was used, or the amount of pollutant emissions that were generated in the various value chain stages, using the indicators that are provided in the SBTN methods. And for this step, it's important to understand that you can either use direct measurements, and that's great if you have them, because they will be useful in the next stages of the methods. But you can also use model-based estimates for this task, just to allow you to move forward in the methods. And then finally, once you've quantified your environmental pressures, you will also complement with environmental pressure estimates. So you will quantify the state of nature for each of the locations, because what's important here to understand is that Science-based targets for nature are local targets. So they depend, the state of nature indicators, they really are important to understand how healthy or how fragile a location is, and so how serious is a pressure for a given location. The same pressure may not be equally important depending on the state of nature of that location where they are exerted. Next slide, please. So I was mentioning earlier the business unit approach. So based on the many feedback that we've received from companies, so the science-based target for nature methods are very resource intensive. And so many companies may not necessarily have the traceability and the data yet ready in order to fulfill the methods, or they may not be able to move all the organization and all the business units at the same pace throughout the method. So we've heard that, and we are launching actually next week, so stay tuned. We are launching a new version of our methods that will allow companies a more flexible and modular approach, so that companies are not stopped in their efforts and they keep moving forwards where they are the most ready and the most eager to set targets. So how will it work? You'll have more details most likely at the next sessions, but basically companies will be able to choose where in their organization they want to focus, so which business units, which product lines, which geographic location. They will also be able to choose one realm or another if they want to focus more on freshwater streams or land or ocean. And they will also, depending on sector, be able to choose whether they want to set target on their direct operations or on their upstreams activities. But we're launching that next week, so we'll have more detailed information in the coming sessions. I just wanted to really highlight before you get overwhelmed with what's needed from you. Do I still have time to go quickly over the value prop, Kassim?
Yes, we do have time.
Okay, cool. I wanted to share also, so we've had already some companies setting targets, and we've captured their feedback on what was the value that they found in implementing those methods. And so next slide, please. Really, the first feedback that we get is around operational resilience. So for companies with global operations and complex supply chains, SBTN process can really help them take a good hard look at where they might be the most vulnerable, and whether it's in their own operations or somewhere deep in their supply chain. So SBTN really helps them spot potential issues early. So we've had companies testify, for instance, that they step one really help them take fast action in really high risk sourcing areas. So SBTN is not just, you shouldn't be looking at SBTN just as a compliance tool, but also as a way to future-proof your business. The second value that we've identified, next slide, please, is around helping inform and align business decisions. So beyond the risk management aspect, SBTN can also help create alignment across teams from procurement teams to sustainability teams to finance teams. One thing that we've learned often, that we've heard from companies, is how tough it can be to get everyone on the same page, because teams are often working in silos. And SBTN really helps break down those silos by offering a clear and shared framework that brings structure to nature conversations and strategies and get everyone moving in the same direction. It really helps company engage also with, not internally, but also externally with suppliers using shared standards and shared language. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons that we hear from companies coming to SBTN is the desire to meet the rising expectations of their stakeholders in terms of action on nature. So let's break down how SBTN can help with that. So first of all, in terms of credibility and reputation, having validated SBTN targets really cuts through the noise. There's a lot, there is a crowded landscapes of ESG claims, but a validated science-based target is very strong. It really demonstrates that companies are very serious about taking credible science-based action. It really strengthens the stakeholder trust in your actions. And then the second feedback that we've received is in terms of access to credit. Investors and lenders are increasingly looking at nature-related risk as financial risks, and SBTN framework really gives them the confidence that a company is future-proofing its business. In France, for instance, I'm working with a French geographic group, just like the one in South Africa. And one of the companies has secured green bonds thanks to its SBTN targets. And then finally, I'll stop there. The last value is around helping companies be better prepared for evolving disclosure and policy requirements in a way that's rigorous and science rigorous and stakeholder aligned. And so this helps really reduce risks related to regulatory compliance and litigation and reputational damage. I know, Garth, you mentioned aligning with TNFD. So we're working very closely with TNFD, and we've also got a lot of feedback from European companies saying how their SBTN journey has really helped them prep for the CSRD regulation requirements.
Thank you, Sophie, for the presentation. I think a lot of takeaways from this, but we'll talk about them next. And then in the interest of time, maybe we can start taking questions from the audience. And also if Kath and I have some questions, we'll fill them after the audience. But talking of questions, there is one in the chat where Sarah is asking if you could please confirm if materiality relates to the entity, or could this also relate to our stakeholders and investors or investors?
What we mean by materiality here are basically, it relates to the company, which activities have exert pressure that are material enough to set science-based targets.
I think the question relates to if the materiality, are you looking at materiality in your own operations only, or are you also considering those of your investors and suppliers or outside your boundaries?
So we are looking at materiality of your own direct operation, as well as your sourcing activity. So the materiality related to the goods that you procure in order to make your own products. So what you call production inputs.
Thank you. I see Sarah had a mic open. Sarah, do you want to follow up? I do notice your hand, Martin.
I'll just go quickly, Martin. Sorry. Thanks, Sophie. That was really interesting. Yeah, I was just curious. The materiality, I guess, what's important to our stakeholders and investors. That's what I was talking about. So parts of our operation, or the vulnerability, etc., that might be more important to our investors or our stakeholders, and not necessarily as material to us.
So let me rephrase to make sure I understand your question. So you're asking whether the materiality assessment drives from your own activities or from the expectations of your stakeholders?
Yeah, so some of our activities might be more important to our stakeholders or investors than others. So materiality from a size perspective, a magnitude perspective, or a vulnerability perspective, that's two ways of looking at it, but you can also look at it from, well, how important is it to the communities where we work?
No, so definitely. So the first step, the materiality assessment tool really defines what is material from an environmental and societal perspective. But you can also, and that's why I was mentioning the last step of the step 1A is about refining those results. So you can look at what the tool gives you, and then you can argue, oh yes, okay, we have additional activities that are more important to us, that are more material. So as long as you can justify that these activities are important for your own context, that's something you can also bring into consideration while you do your materiality assessment.
So you can add a weighting, say,
yes, as long as
we've
you
done
justify
the full materiality assessment, and then our investors might say, no, this aspect is more important to us, and then we can weight that as being more important.
Yes, and that's you will have to provide justification to the validation, to the validators as to why those activities have more weight than others.
Thank you.
So there is always there is obviously the science-based method, but there is always a way to apply those methods to your own context as long as it is justified. So the validator will take into consideration the validity of your justification.
Thanks, Sarah, for the question, and yeah, thanks, Sophie. Martin, do you want to fill your question?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for this background and discussion. Mine is also on this topic of materiality as it is defined sometimes perhaps differently in certain settings, perhaps for listing requirements or in risk work. And I'm not sure, in the absence of an example or perhaps just to get clarity, will this still be something we will explore in this program? Because right now I'm still not clear what the context here is in terms of materiality, not just for what's been discussed now, but overall, it's a difficult construct if one thinks of this from different perspectives. So I'm still a little bit lost as to how to grapple with this. Just maybe first to see, is this something we'll still be exploring a bit further, or do we need to get it right now? Because right now I'm not quite sure I have a common understanding of what we should be thinking about in terms of materiality in this context. Thank you.
So I believe you have a whole deep dive session on materiality in the next part of the program. So I guess that's for you, Kusing, maybe to brief the presenter to spend more time on clarifying the different approaches and how they relate to SBTN materiality.
Definitely. So Martin, in the next session, we will be doing a deep dive into the materiality screening. The first part of that session will be how to define your organizational boundaries, and then also look at what your economic activities are. Then we'll start looking at which of those activities are material to the environmental pressures, as she says. But there are different ways of setting organizational boundaries. And we'll talk about that, whether it's investor focused, it's financial risk focused, or it's operational focused.
Sure.
And we'll do that in the next session.
All right, then let's tackle it there. It's just, cool. Let's leave it for that discussion. Thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Martin. Dr. Govender.
Thanks, Sophie. Thanks, Kusing. It's good that we're going to spend more time. And I see Sarah's also aligning. It's good that we're going to be spending more time on materiality, because I think what is important is the business does materiality assessment deep dives on an annual basis. We just need to make sure that we align what we need to do for nature, what we need to do for energy with our other ESG metrics, because certainly in terms of identifying material matters for nature, we will have to engage our stakeholders. So I think, in terms of when you brief the presenter, Kusing, if you can just ask them to have a more holistic response in terms of how we integrate materiality, so it's part of that rhythm and routine that the business does as we reflect internally and then we engage externally. Thanks.
Thank you for that reflection.
I just want to clarify here what the materiality, so the step 1A is very light in terms of the efforts needed from a firm compared to the rest of the methods here. What we're just asking you is to define, your organizational boundaries, which activities are actually under your control, and which activities do you actually have the power to set and act on targets. And then those activities, you just have to enter them into a tool that we provide alongside your procurement goods. And this tool has been developed based on sector global averages. And so this tool just generates whether or not an activity is material on the different environmental pressures categories. So it's a simple task. We're not asking here for extensive stakeholder engagement. That will come at a later stage. However, if you're already doing on a yearly basis materiality assessments in the field, those insights that you have can come enrich the materiality assessment that you're doing with the tool in the task 5, which is the refinement part, because you have actually more knowledge of of your company context. You can weight that in to interpret the results. But this tool is really also made for companies that may not be as advanced as you in terms of stakeholder engagement and materiality. It just gives a company a broad understanding of what areas they need to start their assessments.
Thanks for the clarity, Sophie. Any more questions? I do have one or two. Let me just check if there are still more questions or point of clarity. Or in the absence of that, or while people are still thinking about their questions, could you also kindly talk about the data availability? So when we started with the working group, there was an issue around availability of data in the regions that companies in South Africa are working on. Can you please just talk a little about that, if there's been an improvement in that regard?
You mean to me, or you're asking the participants if they've improved their data gathering?
view.
Yeah.
Because with the participants in the previous working group, the main issue, they always spoke about availability of data in continuing with some of this work. And yeah, it's something we've spoke to SBTN with regards to, and I just wanted to check if that has been improved with the
So
new MSG tool.
That's why I mentioned we are launching next week the what we call the accelerated pathway, which is so until now, so the current version of the methods, companies, the only way they could narrow the scope of the implementation of the methods was if they were choosing the business unit approach. So you still have to apply the full methods, so all the realms and upstream and direct operations to the business unit. Now we're introducing this, what we call the accelerated pathway, which is a more modular approach that really helps you move forward in the methods where you are the most ready, and so where you are the most able to gather the data. So this way you are not stuck. So basically, in the new accelerated pathway, you'll be able to decide which business units you want to apply the methods to, but also you'll be able to decide if you want to focus only on freshwater or only on land or only on ocean. And then you'll also be able to decide whether you want to focus on direct operation targets or upstream targets. So the most challenge is around usually upstream data gathering, but direct operations, you should be able to have those data more easily available.
Oh, thanks for that.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it.
And so we're launching those accelerated pathway next week at New York Climate Week. So you'll have on the SBTN website, and I'm sure Paul will follow up with you. You'll have the new updated methods, including those modular approach, available on our website.
Thank you. Garth, before I move on, do you have any follow-ups on your end?
I don't know. I actually did have a question about the accelerator pathways, but Sophie's just answered my question, so all's good. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot, Sophie, for that presentation and fulfilling the questions. I think we can move to the next session, would be the next steps, and we'll talk more about what we'll be doing in the next sessions. Sophie, you are welcome to stay on, but thanks a lot for the presentation. And just to check if you are happy to field any more questions, if we get questions from our participants.
So I just want to highlight also that if you have questions, if you're implementing the methods and have technical questions, we do have a help desk on our website. If you go to the Contact Us page, you can submit a question, and we will get back to you within a week, usually. I'm the one coordinating with our experts to answer any technical questions from our end users. So you're not alone. There is always a way to get unstuck on technical questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophie, for the overview and everything.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and best of luck for the rest of the sessions. I'm going to drop off now, but happy to to follow up if you have any other questions.
Before you drop off, I think there's a question from Kat.
Yeah, there's a question from me as well as one that Sarah's just posted in the chat as well. So if you could perhaps field, but my question is just around that help desk. I had jumped on the website quickly now to see if I could find that link to post on this chat, but I couldn't see that help desk link.
Yes.
So if you wouldn't mind just posting that in the chat too for everyone, that would be very helpful.
I can do that. No
Thank
problem.
You so much.
It's just if you go to the resources and then the contact us, but I'll do that straight away.
Please. And while you're doing that, there's a question from Sarah in the chat about the rumors on IFRS 3 being nature-related disclosures, or yeah.
It was just a bit of a cheeky comment. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was wondering if IFRS S3
like
was going to be about nature-related disclosures. So I was just asking if the rumors were true.
Do you want to fill that, Sophie, or?
Not too sure what to say. I'm not part of rumors, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie.
Bye-bye.
You have a lovely day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right. All right. I think in the next 5 minutes, I know I've sent a program that would be an hour, but we had asked for 90 minutes. So I think we still have 5 to 10 minutes to talk about the key takeaways and the next steps, that what's coming up in the next remaining 3 sessions. So I think for me, the key takeaways from this session was that not all economic activities are equal, or rather they do not affect nature equally. So step 1 of this process, or step 1 of science-based targets for nature, would really help you to start understanding what is important, and also what is the starting point for you to start setting science-based targets for nature. And I think the encouraging part about all of this is that you will not be starting from scratch. You can already leverage data from other processes. For example, Harmony mentioned that they have science-based targets for climate, and you can start leveraging data from there to come to this, especially for the determining of your economic activities and also your organizational boundaries. And for those who have the experience with greenhouse gas protocol, you can already start leveraging data from that. So, and I think the other important part is there's already a large number of companies doing this. Might not be in South Africa, but we can already start learning from those companies. And I think the great thing about this is that they are already starting to see benefits with setting science-based targets for nature. Benefits around building their resilience. We talk a lot about adaptation in this country and building organizational or value chain resiliences. I think we can start using SBTN for that. And also streamlining nature action in the organization. So I think that's one other important aspect that she mentioned, that companies can already start to mainstream or streamlining nature work in the organization, start working away from silos in the organization, and SBTN with its methods can help you to start doing that. In terms of next steps, in the next session, we'll be doing the actual materiality screening, which is step 1. So we'll define organizational boundaries for your organization. We can use an example, or we can use our own organizations to do that. We will have someone from a carbon and biodiversity specialist assisting us with the greenhouse gas protocol, using the greenhouse gas protocol to define our organizational boundaries, and then identifying key activities in our organizations. And also we will use the MST tool that Sophie mentioned earlier, the materiality screening tool developed by SBTN, but with the use of NCOR and IBET and other data sources from all over the globe to start identifying and to start understanding how material are our organizational activities or economic activities to the environment. I think we need to, just underline that, to the environment. And that would be it for the next session. So I'll prefer that we have this session in person so that we can start demonstrating how to use these tools, and to also have that better engagement and hands-on understanding of the tool. Justin will be with us in the room, but another specialist will be assisting us with the materiality screening tool, will be online. But Justin and I will be there in the room to assist everyone with how the tool is being used. We can do this at the NBI offices. So I just wanted to check with everyone on call if they're able to make it in person, and also maybe agree on a possible date we can have this session. Dr. Brenda?
Hi, Kusing. Thank you so much. If I could ask, please, that we have a virtual option for all our meetings, because, as you can see, we are including our Australasia colleagues. So certainly support that we have in-person meetings, but if all of it could include a link. Thank you.
Yes, I'll definitely be a link, but I do encourage that those who can make it into the room, please come, and then I'll show you, so we can show you how to use that tool. I will be sharing the tool with the notes from this meeting and also all the resources for the next meeting. So I'm opening the floor for suggestions for the next session. I think Justin will be back on leave from, let's say, end of September, and then early October for the next session. Martin?
Yeah, you've answered my one question around providing the material, and I don't know how you're going to do it, if you can create a repository or if they just the links or something, or what you can email them. Anyway, you've confirmed you'll do that. It may be late, but just a suggestion or ask, to the extent it's possible, to include practical examples. And they could be phantom ones, but I really still feel the need to get something more tangible out of this. And I'm sure when we go through these tools, it would probably be, it might help, but yeah, that's just something I feel would be useful, just to get more practical understanding of the application. Another thing really is just that, look, it does sometimes concern me when SBTN themselves say, but this is very resource intensive, and we know underlying this there's a lot of detail involved. But my appeal is to see how, and to the extent it's possible. And I was encouraged by what they were saying about these maybe more simplified approaches as well. So I'm still struggling with detail, and perhaps to encourage us not to get put off by that, but rather to be very clear on the principles and the understanding around how this all works. Is another suggestion. So yeah, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Martin. I think to your first point on the practical example, there is an example of an organization that SBTN has, but my encouragement would be that could we use our own organizations? And if we are able to do that, that would be great, because we are able to support you as we are going. I know SSO can be very tricky to do, but if we can start working practically on our own organization, would be great. We will, in the sessions, use a company example that SBTN provide, but I am encouraging everyone that we do this for our own organization. I think for step one, it's not that resource intensive. She also mentioned the tool is a ready-to-use tool where you just type in an economic activity in line with ICE's classification, and then it will already give you the data using the model data that is already plugged into the tool, which I will share with the notes from this meeting. I'll share all the tools that we need for the next session.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
And then on the resource intensive part of it, for the first module, and that's why I wanted us to go through step by step, not do all 5 steps, because with doing step by step, then we'll realize that we are already reducing some of the work for the next step that might require a lot of resources. But step 1 is not that resource intensive. So that's why I encourage that everyone who's in call now can start using the tool that we are talking about, and it'll be great to see what you need and what you don't need going into step 2, 3, 4, and 5. But this will only focus on step 1.
Yep, happy with that. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thanks. So I just wanted to check in on the next meeting and the meetings following that. What is the regularity that we are recommending for this group to meet? What is the thinking around that? Because I think we're at a position now where we need to plan out the rest of our calendar years, especially those of us who are not based in Joburg. So if we need to preferably meet in person, I agree, where possible, that would be ideal. But we just need to kind of set something there that we can make attainable. I do want to point out that WWF is hosting their Joburg Business Network meeting on the 22nd of October. So for those of us traveling to that, that's already a date that's in the calendar where people will be around for that meeting. So if there's any way that we could double up on that time, so have it before or after that, that would be ideal. So I just wanted to put that out there as an option. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that suggestion. Do you know what time is the WWF meeting?
Yeah, it'll run from 10 until 2 on Wednesday, the 22nd of October. But I mean, even if we need to do it, you know, on the 22nd or the 23rd, at least for those of us who travel up, it will be then one trip and not an additional trip for this meeting.
Thanks, Mark. I wasn't aware you are not based in Joburg. Yeah, no, thanks a lot for that suggestion. So we already have one date suggestion for one of the meetings or one of the sessions, which is 21 or 23 October. Another way to do this, I can check with the presenters when are they available, and then I send those dates to the team, and then we agree when we are able to meet based on the presenters' dates, if that works. Well, thinking about that, Kat.
Yeah, maybe just as another suggestion, I think that the availability of presenters is a good idea, but then I think perhaps around that we build a poll and just survey all the participants for various dates availability through that poll, so that we can then set up those dates ahead of time, to Mariki's point, just to ensure that the cadence is there, it's in everyone's diaries ahead of time. And I think that's going to be the quickest way to do that, Malaka. So let's try and do that as soon as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, I think as soon as it gets into our diaries, the better. So I'll liaise with the presenters and then get back to you as soon as possible.
Also, Malaka, may I just come in here as well? Just off the back of Martin's point, I wonder whether there's any chance we could build into these sessions anything over and above what is to be focused on from a content point of view. In other words, if there may be opportunities like this accelerator pathway that Sophie spoke of earlier, is to plug that into one of the sessions if it is of interest to participants. So we can go over a little bit of something that is additional to, or is new news, new launch, etc., that would just provide a little bit more of a value add to participants of this course. It may be worth exploring. There may be other subjects that we could explore as well, that we could bolt on, depending on how people feel.
Definitely, I think that's doable. I think SBTN is open to that. I'll just ask someone from SBTN to come and present on some of those resources that are available at the SBTN. They do have a lot of resources, and it'd be great to start getting giving people access to those resources. John, you had your hand up. Was it related to what Kat was mentioning?
No, apologies, Cousin. That was an error, and please, sorry, apologies for that.
So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. I do encourage you that you stay the course. I think there's a lot of resources that one could already start using from SBTN that can really help us with the nature course that we are all trying to get our organizations into. Before I close, Garth, any last thoughts before we close?
No, I mean, I think just to encourage people, as you say, just to walk this journey with us and to keep giving us feedback. as to the content and how we can enhance the content as we go along. But really do look forward to getting to know everyone on the call and more as more people join us. I know, as you said, there were a couple of apologies up front. So I really do look forward to that journey, and I think this is well worth it, despite the complexity and the resource intensiveness that has been highlighted in this session and in other sessions. Yeah, and so just a word of appreciation for your attention and your time today. Thanks to you too, Malaka, for your moderation.
God. And also maybe just to pick up on something you said earlier around the work that we are doing at the NPI around TNFD and some of the green grey infrastructure work, looking at how we are starting to make those actions possible. Please reach us out to that for some of that work. I think when you start doing all of them at the same time, it just shows that they are not really separate pieces of work. It's really one work towards nature, and I think that would be great because everyone talks about resource intensity. So I think just starting to have an overview of all of the work that we are doing will really assist you in starting to put in the work. Thanks, everyone. I'm wishing you a great rest of the day ahead. See you in the next session.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye
all.
all.
Bye.
Bye.